There's a fascinating psychological phenomenon that plays out in relationships, one that many people don't fully understand, yet it shapes nearly every interaction between men and women. It's called perceived value, and it has nothing to do with a man's actual worth, achievements, or character. It's entirely about how he presents himself and how others interpret his behavior. The truth is, women are naturally drawn to men who appear to have higher value, even if in reality he isn't offering much at all. Let me break it down in a way that really hits home. Imagine walking into a high-end store. You see two pairs of shoes, one sitting on a shelf with a price tag of $20 and another behind a glass case with no visible price tag. Which pair instantly grabs your attention? Most people would be curious about the one behind the glass, the one that seems exclusive, limited, and difficult to access. It's not necessarily about whether it's a better shoe, but rather what it represents: rarity, status, and desire. This exact dynamic plays out in human relationships. Many men unknowingly or deliberately position themselves as the 20th shoe, always available, always accessible, always eager to please. They respond to texts instantly, they cancel their plans to see her, they prioritize her above everything, and they pour out their feelings before the woman has even earned them. While this behavior comes from a place of kindness or genuine interest, signals low perceived value. The woman on a subconscious level starts to think, if he is this available and this eager, there must not be much competition for him. If no one else seems to want him, why should I? On the other hand, a man who acts like he's not easily impressed, who has boundaries, who doesn't drop everything for her, and who moves with a sense of self-assuredness communicates a completely different message. His behavior says, I have options, I'm in demand, my time is valuable. He may not even have to say it outright. His actions speak louder than words. This creates the perception that he is valuable and that if she wants to be part of his life, she must meet a certain standard. Now, here's the part that many men struggle to accept. Women often chase men who treat them like they're nothing, not because they enjoy being mistreated, but because it triggers a deep psychological response tied to status and competition. When a man seems indifferent or detached, it creates a challenge. It makes her think, why isn't he chasing me like other guys do? What makes him different? That curiosity quickly turns into desire because humans naturally want what they believe is scarce. There's also an evolutionary aspect to this. Throughout history, men who were leaders, warriors, or high-status individuals weren't readily available to every woman. They were busy, focused, and selective. Women who wanted their attention had to compete for it, and the man's indifference was a signal of his importance. Fast forward to today, and that primal instinct still lingers. When a man acts like he doesn't need her validation, he's tapping into that ancient wiring. But here's the key. This doesn't mean a man should be cruel, dismissive, or disrespectful. Acting like a jerk is not the same as having high value. High value is about confidence and self-respect, not manipulation or mistreatment. A man with genuine self-worth doesn't feel the need to over-explain himself, over-invest in someone too soon, or constantly seek reassurance. Instead, he lets his life, his mission, and his actions show that he's a man of substance. Women chase men who appear to have higher value because, deep down, they want to be chosen by someone who doesn't need them to feel complete. The irony is that many men, in trying to win a woman over, do the very things that lower their perceived value. They think constant attention, gifts, and devotion will make her love them more, when in reality, it has the opposite effect. If you understand this dynamic, you begin to see why women might chase men who act like they're nothing. It's not that they love disrespect, it's that value attracts pursuit. And the man who embodies self-worth naturally creates an environment where she feels the need to earn his attention rather than take it for granted. This shift in perception is the foundation of understanding human attraction, and it all starts with how a man sees himself. Human beings are wired to crave what they perceive as rare, valuable, and hard to obtain. This is a psychological principle that applies to nearly every aspect of life, whether it's material possessions, opportunities, or relationships. When something is abundant and easily accessible, it tends to lose its allure, but when something feels scarce, it immediately becomes more desirable. This concept is at the heart of why women often find themselves chasing men who act like they're nothing. Imagine this for a moment. You walk into a bakery and there's a table full of cookies stacked high. You know you can take one at any time and there's no rush. Chances are you won't feel much urgency to grab one. But what if there's only one cookie left sitting on the counter and 5 other people eyeing it? Suddenly, that cookie becomes the most tempting thing in the room. It's the same cookie, but now, because of its scarcity, your desire for it skyrockets. This is exactly how the dynamics of scarcity work in relationships. When a man is constantly available, always answering texts immediately, never missing a call, always saying yes to every request, he sends a very clear message. I'm easy to get. I'm always here. There's no competition. While that might seem like the safe, romantic thing to do, it actually diminishes his perceived value. There's no sense of urgency, no feeling of exclusivity, and therefore no real desire being generated. On the other hand, when a man creates an environment of healthy scarcity, everything changes. This doesn't mean playing games or deliberately ignoring someone to cause pain. It means genuinely having a life, priorities, and goals outside of the relationship. It means not being overly eager to drop everything for her every single time. It's about showing through actions, not words, that your time is precious and you don't hand it out freely. When a woman encounters this type of man, her instincts kick in. She begins to wonder why he isn't as accessible as other men. Why isn't he falling all over himself to impress her? Why does he seem calm, composed, and focused on his own world instead of obsessing over her? This creates curiosity, and curiosity is the seed of attraction. Scarcity also ties directly into competition. When a man's time and attention are limited, a woman begins to feel like she must earn it. This doesn't necessarily mean she's competing with other women directly, but rather competing with the man's life, his purpose, his standards, his boundaries. She starts to view his attention as something that must be valued and protected instead of something she can take for granted. This phenomenon isn't just theoretical, it's deeply rooted in human psychology and even evolutionary biology. In the past, men who were strong providers, leaders, or protectors weren't easy to access. They had to divide their attention among many responsibilities: survival, leadership, building, protecting the tribe. Women had to work to gain their favor, and this dynamic has been hardwired into human behavior for generations. Even today, in modern relationships, those ancient instincts still exist. The mistake many men make is assuming that the more they give without boundaries, the more a woman will appreciate them. But when there's no scarcity, there's no excitement. Think about it. When you know you can have something anytime, there's no thrill, no tension, no emotional high. Relationships thrive on a delicate balance of comfort and challenge. Too much comfort, and things become dull. Too much challenge, and it becomes toxic. Scarcity, when applied correctly, keeps the spark alive by maintaining mystery and value. Women don't consciously say, "I want a man who is hard to get." It's a subconscious response. She feels drawn to a man whose life isn't completely centered around her because it signals that he's desirable to others, has purpose, won't crumble without her presence. Ironically, this makes her invest more energy, more effort, more emotional commitment. So when a man acts like he's nothing, meaning he isn't chasing, over giving, or constantly available, he inadvertently triggers this scarcity effect. His absence, or even just his controlled availability, creates a kind of hunger. She starts to seek him out, wondering what makes him different, why he isn't like the others, and what she needs to do to secure his attention. Scarcity isn't about manipulation, it's about self-respect and balance. A man who values himself doesn't make his time limitless. He knows that by guarding his energy and giving selectively, he creates a natural dynamic where his attention holds weight. Women are wired to chase what feels rare, and when a man embodies that rarity, desire becomes inevitable. This is why, time and time again, women end up pursuing the men who seem hardest to get, because scarcity will always magnify desire. There is a hidden force that fuels many of the complicated dynamics between men and women, and it's one most people never see clearly: the ego trap. At its core, it's about validation, self-worth, and the deep, unspoken need to feel wanted and significant. When a woman encounters a man who doesn't seem to care, who doesn't chase her, who acts like she's just another person in his world rather than the center of it, it creates a powerful psychological reaction. It doesn't just make her curious, it challenges her ego. Every human being, whether they admit it or not, has a desire to feel special. This desire is magnified in relationships because romantic interest is one of the most personal and vulnerable forms of validation. When a man gives a woman constant attention, compliments her endlessly, and showers her with effort, it feels nice at first. But over time, that validation becomes expected. It's no longer exciting, and it no longer challenges her perception of herself. She knows she has his attention. So there's no tension, no uncertainty, no deeper emotional investment required on her part. However, when a man doesn't behave this way, when he holds back, stays composed, and doesn't fall over himself to impress her, something entirely different happens. Instead of feeling secure, her mind goes into overdrive. She starts thinking, wait a second, why isn't he chasing me like everyone else? Why doesn't he seem impressed by me? Does he not see my value? These questions don't just stir curiosity, they threaten her ego. The ego hates rejection or indifference. When someone doesn't give us the response we expect, our natural instinct is to try to correct it, to win back that validation. It's like a psychological itch that has to be scratched. This is why some women will chase a man who acts like they're nothing. Not because they necessarily like him as a person, but because they need to restore their sense of worth in his eyes. The chase becomes less about genuine attraction and more about proving something to themselves. Think about this in terms of competition. If a woman is used to men giving her constant attention, she's in a position of power. Ego is secure because she knows she's desirable and sought after. Then along comes a man who disrupts that pattern by not participating in the game. Suddenly, her usual strategies don't work. She can't predict his reactions. She can't manipulate his feelings with her usual charm or beauty. This lack of control is deeply unsettling, and it often drives her to work harder to win him over, just to feel like she's back in control. This is why rejection often intensifies attraction. When someone pulls away or acts indifferent, it triggers a scarcity mindset within the ego. The mind starts to believe, if I don't get this person's attention, it must mean they're more valuable than I thought. I have to prove I'm worthy of them. Ironically, it's not about love or even genuine interest at this point. It's about the battle for validation. This dynamic can easily become a toxic cycle. A woman chases because her ego feels challenged. The man, by remaining detached, reinforces her sense that she hasn't won yet. The more elusive he becomes, the more she invests emotionally. It's similar to a gambler at a slot machine who hasn't hit the jackpot yet. The unpredictability keeps her hooked. Every small sign of attention from him feels like a reward, and it only fuels her desire to keep playing the game until she gets the outcome she craves. The tragedy here is that this entire process often has little to do with authentic connection. She may not even like the man for who he really is. What she's really chasing is the feeling of being validated, the reassurance that she is desirable enough to win over someone who initially seemed out of reach. This is why many women end up in situations where they later wonder, Why did I even want him so badly? He wasn't even right for me. For men, understanding this ego trap is crucial. When you give away all your attention freely and without boundaries, you're not challenging her ego, you're soothing it. While that might seem like the loving thing to do, it often leads to her losing interest because there's no internal struggle, no sense of achievement. But when you hold back just enough, when you maintain your independence and don't allow yourself to be easily won, you create a dynamic where her ego has to work to meet you at your level. Women don't always realize this consciously, but their actions reveal the truth. It's not cruelty or disrespect that draws them in. It's the psychological drive to close the gap between their expectations and reality. The man who acts like he's nothing isn't necessarily more attractive as a person. He simply represents a challenge. And the ego is wired to chase challenges it hasn't yet conquered. This is why rejection and indifference can be such powerful forces in relationships, and why some women can't seem to walk away from the chase. There's something undeniably magnetic about mystery. As human beings, we are naturally drawn to what we don't fully understand. It's in our psychology. The unknown sparks curiosity, and curiosity fuels desire. This principle is especially powerful when it comes to relationships. In fact, one of the biggest reasons women end up chasing men who act like they're nothing is because of the mystery factor, the irresistible pull of a man whose thoughts, feelings, and intentions aren't easily read or predicted. Consider this: in today's world, everything is instant and accessible. You can get almost anything you want with a click of a button. Food delivered in minutes, answers from the internet in seconds, entertainment at your fingertips 24/7. Because of this, people have become accustomed to instant gratification. There's no need to wait, to wonder, or to work hard for anything. But when something or someone doesn't give you immediate clarity, when there's uncertainty involved, it disrupts that pattern. It stands out as rare and intriguing. When a man behaves in a way that's predictable, a woman can quickly figure him out. She knows exactly how he'll react to her texts, compliments, or behavior. There's no puzzle to solve, no hidden depth to explore. While that might feel safe and secure, it often fails to create excitement or passion. On the other hand, when a man doesn't reveal everything about himself up front, when he leaves certain things unsaid, maintains his independence, and moves through life with calm confidence, he becomes a mystery, and mystery is one of the most powerful drivers of attraction. This doesn't mean he's secretive in a toxic way or deliberately confusing. The difference lies in emotional availability. Many women chase men who act like they're nothing because these men don't constantly validate them. They don't overshare every thought or feeling. They don't make their intentions crystal clear right away. This leaves room for interpretation. And interpretation is where the mind starts to play games. The woman begins to wonder, what does he really think of me? Is he interested? Or am I imagining it? Why isn't he chasing me like other men do? Oh, these questions create a loop of curiosity that can easily turn into obsession. The less she knows, the more she wants to know. It's the same reason why cliffhangers in movies and TV shows are so effective. They leave you hanging, desperate for the next piece of information. A mysterious man is like a story that hasn't been fully told yet. She keeps coming back, trying to piece it together, hoping that one day he'll reveal everything. There's also a psychological concept at play here called the Zeigarnik effect, which states that people remember unfinished tasks more than completed ones. When something feels incomplete, the mind keeps coming back to it, trying to find closure. A man who doesn't lay all his cards on the table becomes an unfinished task in a woman's mind. She keeps investing emotional energy, trying to figure him out, because walking away feels like leaving a puzzle unsolved. Mystery is also deeply tied to perceived value. Think about luxury brands. They don't advertise every detail about their products. Instead, they carefully control what they reveal, giving just enough information to spark desire while withholding the rest. This makes people crave the product more because it feels exclusive and special. Similarly, when a man doesn't broadcast every detail about his life or emotions, it creates the impression that he has depth and importance. His attention feels rare, and rare things are always valued more highly. This is why women often chase men who act indifferent or detached. His lack of constant availability sends the message that his world is bigger than just her, and she wants to be part of it. She sees him as a man with purpose, a man others might also desire, and that drives her to compete for his attention. However, there's a fine line between healthy mystery and harmful confusion. Healthy mystery comes from a man genuinely having his own life, goals, boundaries. Harmful confusion, on the other hand, comes from manipulation or game playing. The goal isn't to deliberately hurt her or keep her guessing forever. It's to remain authentic while not giving away everything too quickly. In relationships, the initial stage of attraction thrives on uncertainty. Too much clarity too soon can kill the excitement, while a little bit of unpredictability keeps the spark alive. A man who understands this doesn't need to act like a jerk or pretend to be someone he's not. All he has to do is stay grounded in his own life, keep his emotions balanced, and let her slowly discover who he is over time. Ultimately, the mystery factor explains why women often chase men who seem hard to figure out. It's not that these men are necessarily better partners or more loving. It's that their unpredictability keeps the woman mentally engaged and emotionally invested. She's not just interested in him, she's addicted to the process of unraveling the mystery he represents. And as long as that puzzle remains unsolved, the chase continues. One of the most powerful forces in human behavior, and one of the most dangerous when it comes to relationships, is something called intermittent reinforcement. This is the foundation of the reward cycle, a psychological pattern that explains why women often chase men who act like they're nothing. It's not about love or compatibility in many cases. It's about the addictive nature of inconsistent rewards, much like what keeps gamblers glued to slot machines or people hooked on social media notifications. Here's how it works. When you receive a reward, every single time you perform an action, it quickly loses its thrill. Imagine a slot machine that pays out money every single time you pull the lever. In the beginning, it might feel exciting, but very soon, you'd expect the payout. The excitement would fade because there's no uncertainty, no anticipation. Now imagine a slot machine that sometimes pays out and sometimes doesn't, with no predictable pattern. That unpredictability keeps you hooked. You keep pulling the lever over and over, thinking, maybe this time I'll win. It's the mystery of not knowing when the reward will come that makes it so addictive. This exact same dynamic plays out in relationships, especially with men who are inconsistent with their attention. A man who always showers a woman with compliments, affection, and availability creates predictability. She knows exactly what to expect, which may feel safe, but it doesn't trigger intense desire. It becomes routine. There's no challenge or emotional high. On the other hand, a man who sometimes gives attention and sometimes withdraws it creates a powerful emotional hook. One day, he's warm, charming, and fully engaged. The next, he's distant, cold, or seemingly uninterested. This back and forth dynamic throws her emotions into chaos. She begins to think, what did I do wrong? Did I say something to upset him? How can I get back to the version of him who seemed so invested yesterday? This uncertainty keeps her coming back for more, trying to earn the reward of his affection again. When he finally gives her a small sign of approval, a compliment, a text, a moment of closeness, it feels incredibly powerful because of how rare and unpredictable it is. That single reward floods her brain with dopamine, the feel-good chemical associated with pleasure and reinforcement. It's the same chemical rush gamblers experience when they hit the jackpot or when someone gets a like on social media. Over time, this creates emotional addiction. She's no longer chasing him because of who he is as a person, but because she's hooked on the cycle of withdrawal and reward. The highs are intoxicating and the lows are devastating, which makes the highs feel even more significant when they finally come. It becomes a never-ending loop. The more inconsistent he is, the harder she works to win him over, and the harder she works, the more invested she becomes. The tragic part is that many women don't even realize this is happening. They mistake this roller coaster of emotions for passionate love or deep connection, when in reality it's a psychological trap. True love is stable and consistent. It's calm and supportive. The reward cycle creates a kind of chaos that tricks the brain into thinking it's experiencing something special. This is why some women will stay in unhealthy situations far longer than they should. Even when they logically know the relationship isn't good for them, they can't walk away because their emotions are tied to the hope of receiving that next hit of validation. It's the same principle that keeps people glued to toxic friendships, addictive apps, or even bad habits. The brain is wired to chase unpredictable rewards. From the man's perspective, this cycle can happen unintentionally. Some men are naturally inconsistent because they're focused on their own goals, they're emotionally unavailable, or they simply don't communicate well. Others, however, use this pattern deliberately, knowing that a woman who's hooked on this cycle will keep chasing them. They give just enough attention to keep her hanging on, but never enough to let her feel secure. This is where the relationship crosses into manipulation and emotional control. For women, breaking free from the reward cycle requires awareness and self-reflection. The first step is recognizing that the chase isn't about love, it's about addiction. Once she sees the pattern for what it is, she can start detaching emotionally and regaining control over her decisions. For men who want healthy relationships, the lesson is clear. Consistency matters. If you truly care about someone, you don't play games with their emotions. You communicate openly and honestly rather than creating artificial scarcity and unpredictability. While being a little mysterious or independent can create attraction, emotional whiplash is destructive. At the end of the day, the reward cycle explains why women often end up chasing men who seem indifferent or detached. The inconsistency itself becomes addictive. Each rare moment of warmth feels like proof that the man truly cares, even if his overall behavior suggests otherwise. This powerful psychological loop can keep a woman stuck for months or even years, unable to let go, not because of who he really is, but because of the emotional roller coaster he has created. When we look at the dynamics of why women often chase men who act like they're nothing, it's easy to focus entirely on the man's behavior, his indifference, his scarcity, his mystery, and the psychological patterns he triggers. But there's another side to this equation that's just as important, if not more so the woman's response. The final key to understanding this dynamic isn't about him at all. It's about reclaiming control, breaking the cycle, and learning to value yourself so deeply that no one else's actions can dictate your worth or happiness. The truth is, chasing someone who consistently devalues you isn't really about that person. It's about what's happening internally. Many women who fall into this pattern don't realize that the real struggle is with their own sense of self-worth. When you're deeply connected to your own value, you don't feel compelled to chase anyone. You don't need external validation because you already know who you are and what you bring to the table. However, when that self-worth is shaky or undefined, you start looking outward for proof that you're enough. A man's attention then becomes more than just attention. It becomes a measure of your value. If he's warm and affectionate, you feel secure and validated. If he's cold and distant, you feel rejected and inadequate. Suddenly, your entire emotional state hinges on whether or not he approves of you. This is why reclaiming control is so crucial. It's about shifting the focus away from him and placing it firmly back on you. Instead of constantly asking, why is he doing this? Why isn't he treating me better? You begin asking, why am I allowing this behavior in my life? What part of me believes I have to earn love through suffering or sacrifice? These questions are difficult, but they're the beginning of true empowerment. One of the first steps in reclaiming control is setting clear boundaries. Boundaries are not about controlling someone else's behavior. They're about defining what you will and won't accept. When you have strong boundaries, you stop trying to change him and start protecting yourself. For example, if a man only reaches out when it's convenient for him, instead of rewarding that behavior by being available every time, you create space. You don't chase, you don't beg, you don't overgive, you simply respond with self-respect. This is where many women struggle because walking away or pulling back can feel terrifying. There's a fear of losing him, of missing out on the possibility that he might finally change. But here's the truth. If holding on to someone requires you to let go of yourself, you've already lost far more than you'll ever gain. You cannot build a healthy relationship by abandoning your own needs and desires. Another key part of reclaiming control is understanding the difference between love and attachment. Love is mutual, it's consistent, respectful, and uplifting. Attachment, on the other hand, is often one-sided and fueled by fear and scarcity. Many women mistake attachment for love because the emotions are so intense, but intensity isn't the same as intimacy. When you're attached to someone who doesn't truly value you, what you're really chasing isn't them. It's the feeling of security you believe they can provide. This is why healing your inner world is so important. When you focus on building your own life, nurturing your passions, and surrounding yourself with people who genuinely support you, you begin to see relationships differently. You start to realize that a man's approval is not the prize you are. You are the one with value. And anyone who wants to be in your life should recognize that without constant persuasion or chasing on your part. Reclaiming control also means letting go of the fantasy version of who you think he could be. Many women don't fall in love with the man in front of them. They fall in love with his potential. They see glimpses of affection, small moments of kindness, and they hold on to the hope that one day he will become the man they've been waiting for. But this hope keeps them stuck. It keeps them investing in a relationship that may never exist. To truly reclaim your power, you must accept what is, not what you wish it could be. Look at his actions, not his words. If his behavior consistently shows that you're not a priority, believe that truth. No matter how much it hurts, walking away isn't easy. But staying in a situation where you're constantly chasing someone who acts like you're nothing is far more painful in the long run. Ultimately, reclaiming control is about choosing yourself every single day. It's about realizing that you don't need to prove your worth to anyone. The right relationship will never require you to abandon your dignity or self-respect. When you reach this level of inner strength, you stop participating in games and emotional roller coasters. You no longer feel drawn to men who are emotionally unavailable because you've outgrown the need to chase what doesn't serve you. When you embody this mindset, everything changes. Instead of running after someone who's pulling away, you stand still and let them show you who they really are. If they don't step up, you let them go, not out of bitterness or revenge, but out of deep self-love. That is what true power looks like, the quiet, unshakable, knowing that you are enough with or without them.